New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Free my mind, open my heart with the whispers of truth, to live a conscious life, to live a conscious life on the growing edge, on the growing edge.
And now, here's Allie.
Good morning to you, wherever you are. I'm Rev Michael Benjamin, and I am here live in Farmington, Utah. And today on Growing Edge Live, we have an amazing lineup for you. You're going to be mind blown, I'm sure, by some of the topics that we dive into. And we are brought to you, sponsored by Satya, Inspiring Minds, Healing Hearts, and Transforming Lives. And also New Thought Media Network. Thanks for having us here. And so what are we doing? We are having conversations with soul-centered individuals that are really, truly living their visions out loud. These individuals that we bring on every Monday are directing their time, talent, energy, and resources into good works. They are supporting humanity and in a direct and a roundabout way, helping people connect through love. So thank you for being here. Super excited for today. And we're going to move right into our first segment, which is Ask Allie. And I have a question here from one of our viewers, one of our audience, Nick. And Nick says, I've been studying metaphysics for some time now. I'm becoming more and more aware of how my thoughts create my reality. I'm getting really good at visioning and knowing what I want to manifest. And I still struggle to stay on track with my goals. The negative thinking creeps in, and I catch myself in judgment and having opinions about others. Any suggestions? Wow, Nick, I think I was just thinking of this weekend as I was kind of in a little bit of a funk myself. Had someone and something on my mind that I couldn't clear. It just kept sneaking back in. And so we can learn this together. So on our journey to self-discovery, we realize that we are very powerful individuals, that our thoughts do affect and sometimes create our reality. And so what can we do to manage our thoughts and our energy and our emotions when we get triggered, when someone's not behaving the way we think they should, or something's not going the way we would prefer it to go? Well, ideally, we would be more relaxed and those things wouldn't get to us. But quite often, because of the way the world is, because of the amount of stress most of us are under, and the enormous time that we put into tending to our lives and going to work and all of that, most of us are going to bump up against other people and other situations that aren't always the way that we would prefer them to be. So how do you stay on track? Well, one of my teachers shared this with me, and it's been extremely helpful. So when you're there, when you can't seem to get grounded or centered in self, a good thing to remember is the word stop. S-T-O-P, surrender to one power. There is one infinite organizing intelligence, one infinite organizing power that permeates all time and space. And we're a part of that. So when we stop, we simply take a time out, we pause, and we pivot. So we pause and we pivot our attention and to the one power, the one source, the God energy that's within us. And as we pause and pivot and turn our attention to what we know in truth, which is oneness and wholeness, we simply take a break from the ego mind or the chattering of that part of our brain that's got lots of opinions, that those parts of our brain, both on the left side, that are about our rational thinking and our irrational thinking and filled with emotions. And we sort of give it a break when we stop and we surrender to the one power and the one presence that says, this moment is filled with opportunities, potentialities. This moment is full of ideas. When I let that more negative voice inside quiet for a moment, and I align more with my right brain, which is the creative, which is living in the now, that is visionary and idealistic, and that part of us, that other part of our right brain that isn't verbal at all, that is giving us this deep sense of belonging right where we are. So we kind of switch, we can make that switch from left brain to right. And in that, we can then, what I love to do is to have a soul centering mantra. And I help my clients establish this. I take them through a lengthy meditative process so that they can find their soul centered mantra, which once you've identified it, once you've crafted a statement or a mantra that aligns with your most essential self, your truest self, then this mantra can be very centering, very grounding, but also holds within it your vision, your dreams, your hopes, your potential. And so when you stop, surrender to the one presence, the one power, and then you call upon your soul centering mantra, which in my case, it is, love moves me forward, light illumines me from the inside out, and joy guides me every step of the way. So I say this to myself when I find that I've got opinions about someone or something, things aren't going the way I would like them to go, and I just stop and then I repeat this soul centering mantra. Then I become aware of who I really am. I am a unique, individualized expression of the divine. I know that I have an amazing life to tend to. I know that I have access to this authentic power within me that wants to flow and move and give rise and work with the universe. So when we put ourselves in this place of highly creative, receptive, now moment energy, what happens is we've activated the law of intention. We've identified what it is we want. Love moves me forward. Light illumines me from the inside out. And joy guides me every step of the way. So I've set my intention with my soul-centered mantra. Then the law of attraction comes into action. It responds because the universe is always responding to us. And so the law of attraction gets activated. And then what that looks like in the physical, because we're talking about metaphysics, we're talking about the invisible power of the law and the divine mind. But what the law of attraction, once it's active, and it's always is, but intentionally, once we bring it into our field, what happens is our world, our physical stuff, the substance of our lives, the universe reorganizes itself to match what we're intending. So the law of intention activates the law of attraction, and then opportunities reveal themselves. Ideas start to come in. Maybe you get a phone call or an email, an invitation that will lead you down a particular path. And so you become masterful at working these laws of staying on track. And then the law of right action kicks in. Because we're in this high state, We're above the line. We're in this positive vibe. We're now consciously working with the field. The law of right action kicks in, and we feel naturally inspired. We tune in to our divine discernment, and then we're inspired. We get an intuitive hit on taking particular actions, and that's activating the law of right action. So, Nick, I invite you to stop, surrender to the one presence. I invite you to craft for yourself a soul-centering mantra that brings that energy of who you're becoming and who you want to be in the future and how you want to experience life into your field, into your consciousness. And then, just because we are these beautiful spiritual beings having this amazing human but spiritual experience, the law of intention, the law of attraction, and the law of right action are ours. We get to play in this field. We become master manifestors, co-creators with the universe. That's how we get over that annoying little egoic mind that wants to give judgments and opinions and stay in other people's business and complain about the now. It's not worth it. So thank you, Nick, for that question. It's awesome to be able to share your questions with our audience. So if you have a question, go ahead and email me at growingedgelive@gmail. There we go. And I'd love to dive into a new question, one that I've not had before. So thank you, Nick. And I'd like to welcome those that are joining us. Shay from Colorado, welcome. If you have a comment, please drop one in the chat, and we would love to hear from you. So now we're going to slide into our next segment, and this is going to be an interesting conversation because I have invited my beloved husband, spouse of 25 plus years, I think it's 26 years, Michael Benjamin, to be my guest today. And Michael is an amazing individual. He's put up with me for all these years, and I've put up with him for all these years, and it hasn't been a putting up with, my love. It's been such an amazing journey we've been on, ups and downs, highs and lows. Michael's been studying metaphysics for, I'd say, his entire life, but came to New Thought, 25 plus years ago when we met.
Yeah,
That's where we actually met.
28 years. Yeah.
We met in a Science of Mind discussion group in Big Bear Lake, and it wasn't love at first sight, but it nearly love at first sight. It took us a week or so. Anyway,
Yeah.
I'm so excited to be talking to you today. I don't want to go into a lot of background with you because it's going to be revealed through our conversation. I know that. So Michael Benjamin, welcome to Growing Edge Live.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here. I was wondering when you were finally going to have me. I mean, geez, I think we made it into the second month of the show, and finally I'm here.
Yeah,
So
well, I know that you've been chomping at the bit to be on, and I have been wanting to bring you on too. It just worked out today that it was the perfect time.
Perfect time.
So I want to dive right in. Tell us about you. What's your spiritual evolution, your spiritual journey been like? How have you gone from your earliest memories to now? All of that in about 15 minutes.
Yeah, well, thanks. It's been an epic journey, to be honest. Life, really is divine, and for me, I had a nickname when I was a child, given to me, affectionately from my grandfather, which was Motor Mouth. And my father used to say to me, you ask too many questions. You ask a lot of questions. And then it would move to, you ask too many questions. And that's me. So I came into this body and I had this human experience, not much different than all of us, really. But there was something that occurred for me when I was, 3 years old and 3.5 years old. I don't remember the event really, but I did have a drowning experience, and there was parties. My parents were hippies. It was in the 70s. They were partying around the pool with the neighbors in a new up and coming community in Southern California. And, best practices were written because of experiences like me. Like now, gates and fences around swimming pools and all those things occurred because of things that happened like mine. But ultimately, I fell in the pool and effectively I drowned. And later it was revealed to me, and I'll get more into that later down the line in the conversation, but it was revealed to me what that was about. As it was, one of the other children saw me at the bottom of the pool and called out. Colleen, she was 3-4 years older than me. She called out to the parents. They jumped in, they pumped my stomach, took me to the ER, and here I am, So obviously it wasn't the end of my human journey that time. But the striking things as a child that I remember was that my mom and all of her friends used to gather around and tune in to me, and I was actually open to something, and they used to ask questions, and answers used to channel through me to them to a degree that they just were absolutely mind blown. And my father, being of a very traditional, sort of, religiosity, a standard brand background, he wasn't open to explore more into that, and he forbade mom. So he put the quash on that. After
Wait, so what kind of things would they ask you?
They used to ask me what God would say, and they used to ask me about, like deep and profound questions, and I quasi remember it, to be honest. Like in my conscious mind, I don't remember it, but when I do speak to you about it, I recall sort of being the channel for information to come through. So it was kind of almost like it wasn't something I was answering from my local mind, that's for sure.
Yeah, so I remember your mom saying, because she would talk about these experiences with us quite often, and she would say that she would like rub your stomach or tickle your back, and that would sort of put you in this deep trance state, and then they would ask you questions, and you would answer them with vocabulary that you wouldn't typically use as a 3, 4, 5-year-old, that you would use words and talk about things, situations that you had no, earthly experience with.
All that is absolutely true. And what, is interesting for me is to say that I'm kind of an old soul, like is kind of an understatement. Like this experience of being human is not new, and there's always been filters that are open for me. Like I'm sure, and I'm absolutely certain that we can all tune in and tap into that entelechy, tap into that our higher self, if you will, and that we can begin to work with that. And I know Abraham would say the same thing. I know Esther. I know we've had the opportunity to spend time with Sheila and Marcus and Theo, and they would all tell you the same thing. So there's really that opening that has to occur. Like I loved it in your Ask Allie segment when you talked about stop, and how absolutely empowering and clarifying and expansive that is, right? So in my journey, it started for me at a young age, but always I've been spiritually curious. Obviously being raised Catholic, used to go to churches. I remember specifically one time in catechism and CCD class, the nun that was teaching the class, she asked me, or she asked the class, who wrote the Bible. And it was kind of an interesting thing because I had a lot of exploration going. My mother remarried, and I was going to Christian Science church, and I was really into that, and I was feeling the Spirit everywhere I went, even if it was Catholic church or Christian Science church, or if I went to church with my friends, Christian churches, or I went to temple with my Jewish friends, grew up in Jewish community, Southern California. I always tuned into that spiritual, ineffable truth, and that we know is everywhere. It transcends religiosity, right? So it's not in this, that one church has something that others don't. In any case, I was in the CCD class, and the nun asked, somebody asked to the teacher who wrote the Bible, and she said, children, that's a great question. Can anybody answer that? I said, oh, I do. And she said, oh, Michael, what's the answer? I said, Mary Baker Eddy. And she told me to promptly leave the room. And she had me go sit outside. Well, she got my mom, when it was all said and done, told her the experience and said, what's this Mary Baker Eddy thing? And my mom just kind of chuckled it off and said, well, he's a little confused, obviously, because we spend half of our time going to the Christian Science church, and he's in the Sunday school program. And of course, they talk a lot about Mary Baker Eddy. And so anyhow, and the lady,
that's classic.
Yeah. But in any case, going back to it, spiritually always have been, I think, a seeker. And, I remember through my teenage years going to various churches. I really felt the Spirit for a long time. I accepted the Lord as my personal Savior, became a born again. My father told me, absolutely not, can't do it. You're Catholic until you're 18, like it or not. And so, so I used to spend time in Foursquare churches and Assembly of God churches, and go into Bible study groups and men's groups and things. Always was a seeker, all through my teenage years. And then, when we met, so, life, the ebbs and flows, finished college, thought I was going to, go down my first path. Things didn't work according to my ego, and started to really seek deeper meaning when I was 24. I went up and spent time with my mother, who, as you know, was a mental science practitioner. And I asked her, Mom, what's the meaning of life? I feel ill-prepared here. And she said, oh, honey, I think we all have similar feelings. Why don't you come with me? There's somebody I want you to hear. And she took me to the spiritual center, and then, my fast track into metaphysics, becoming a mental science practitioner myself, also began at that time. So that was 28 years ago, at the Bear Valley Center.
Yeah, and you're still on the board of directors there years later.
Yep, and we have been, you and I, of course, you and I met you shortly thereafter, and we have an interesting story there. But ultimately, we've been in the front row ever since. And, whether it was singing in the choir, which I'm not even a trained voice, and you told me I'm not allowed to break out into song or chant here today, because I'm not, trained voice. But, over all the years, I've kind of become trained, And so, whether it be in choir, or whether it be, in meditation circles, or teaching youth ministry programs or youth programs, all of that, it's been an amazing journey. And wow, did it accelerate when after I graduated through practitioner training and so forth, I heard this voice say to me to become a spiritual care chaplain and start to work with senior community, who are leaving and transcending. And so I reached out to the local hospice company up there in Big Bear Valley Hospice, and lo and behold, they were looking for spiritual care chaplaincy. They had a void, and I met with them, and they said the only requirement that we have really is, because of some issues that we had, is we can't have you trying to convert everybody and accept the Lord on their way out. I said, well, that's not going to be a problem for me because, my training is to be more all inclusive than that. And they said, good, you're hired. Now here's a whole client list. Go get busy. And so I thought that was kind of fun. But in any case, what an experience to have for years to be able to sit with dozens and dozens of people. And I'm not sure every spiritual care chaplain has the experiences I had, but what an expansive experience to be able to sit with people in what I know is probably the most vulnerable and intimate times of our entire human experience. There's the newborn that comes in and we're completely dependent on our loved ones, for everything. But then there's also kind of the last couple chapters where we often become very, very dependent on the others as well.
Yeah. So I want to talk a bit more about your hospice chaplaincy, the next segment of the show. Let's touch on moving to Utah. You and I moved from from Southern California to Utah, and we founded the Satya Center in 2009.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about that. And we've got just a couple of minutes.
As you know, we being practitioners and really living in the spirit and tuning into that divine mind, we were right in the midst of catastrophic illness with our youngest, who, was diagnosed with an inoperable 19.5-inch brain and spinal cord tumor. And he was catastrophically ill. And this was only a few years into our journey. But everything worked out for us, divine and best case scenario, with many, many major miracles along the way. One of them was sort of the prayer, right? The prayer for us became, how do we make a living from home so that we can take care of Chris? And then ultimately, getting into private investment, real estate and things in Utah came back into our trajectory, and we were supported in that. And we sort of levitated from California to Utah, and we landed here, only to be met with this predominant faith, which Utah has many, many strengths. One of it is the Mormon Church, the presence of the LDS Church here, but absent in the Ogden, Utah, was any, spiritual centers like we were accustomed to, like the Bear Valley Center. But no chance to the fact that you were just finishing up your ministerial training and really, ultimately you and I felt the call after having several years of in our house, having meditation groups and, once a month drum circles and lots of things that we did for years, 2003 through 2009. But ultimately, at some point, it became very clear for you that it was time to open a center. And actually, it wasn't the first time that Ogden had a science of mind or religious science center, because there was a movement here for many, many years. But ultimately, we adopted that chapter, and we opened. All those people came and their former board, and how easy it was for us to open up the Satya Center for Spiritual Living. Satya means higher truth. That higher truth that once we open up to it or tune into it, it sets us free. And so that's what we've done. And we opened the Satya Center in 2009 together. And over the years, we've had, many, many tens of thousands of people come through. And it's been an amazing journey, really. Obviously, it's not easy being a spiritual center per se, but at the same time, it is.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. And we're going to take a short break, and we will be right back. And we're going to hear some more about Michael Benjamin and his NDE and all kinds of other things. Thanks, Michael.
All right. See you soon.
You are a gift. That is the absolute truth. You are a gift, a blessing to the world, a way that the infinite love of God shines itself, shares itself, and expresses itself more fully in the world. You are a gift and a blessing. Please take that seriously. Take it as your honor. Take it as your opportunity to be a light that shines for others. Be that bright light of God's love that's the truth of who you are. And enjoy it, because you deserve it.
Hello, we're back, and I'm noticing Shay has written a little note saying, "Hey Michael, great story here. You know Abraham Hicks," and that's really interesting. We don't know her personally, but she has a house probably 5 miles from our house. She actually was born and raised in this area, LDS, and she has this big, some call it the Abraham's Castle or Esther's Castle, on the hillside in Layton. And so, yeah, Shay, we are students of Abraham, and coincidentally, she lives very close by. So that's an interesting little fact. And I know when you were kind of skeptical, weren't you? This is really, this is a good kind of intro to going to the next phase of our conversation. Michael was pretty skeptical of anything that was channeled or anything that was kind of woo-woo like that. You didn't really buy into that or even have it on your radar until we went to Sicily for my sister's wedding. And I had an Abraham book with me. Was it The Incredible Power of Emotions?
The Astonishing Power of Emotion.
Yeah. And you actually opened up to at least listen as I read it. We read the whole book out loud during that 3-week stay in Sicily. And, you know, it's funny, there's like little breadcrumbs along your road, along your spiritual path.
God.
And that's when you first like opened up to that.
Yep.
And so why don't you talk a little bit about that and then talk more about what occurred to you? I think it was what, 3 or 4 years ago now, when we were doing our on the road, you call it the Trail of Tears, and we had that deep dive meditative experience with Mother Mary. Yeah. So talk about Abraham, talk about channeling.
Well, yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because I do remember when I believe it was Lyle and Claire gave you a big bag of tapes, and it was all Abraham. And I remember kind of saying, almost like my dad, you know, no, I'm not into that, you know, type of thing. I think it was, you know, I don't know what that was about, because generally I'm inquisitive, right? But I think when the student's ready, the teachers appear, because, you know, it wasn't that many years later, but In Heaven as on Earth, that audiobook that I listened to, that really sort of like, I started to activate this yes factor like never before, you know, like this awareness of the ever-present presence, the fact that we're never really born and we never really die, and that there's this coming and going, there's this appearance and this the ascension or the disappearance, right? And so the teachings of Abraham that come through Esther, you know, really are, you know, all yes, evoking spiritual truth, right? And so it was just an amazing find. I remember laying on the wall in Sicily, and Giardini Naxos reading to you and sharing tears, and oh my God, just this expansive awareness. And that's kind of how it is the experiences that lead us to have these mind expanding moments, right? Where light bulbs seemingly click on.
So we had one of those light bulb moments when we took a year and a half off, and we had purchased a motorhome, which we call Om Shanti Home. And she's a beautiful Sprinter chassis with a Winnebago, 27 foot. And we just took off and drove around the country from coast to coast and up and down, and camped, primarily stealthy camping on BLM or public lands, off the grid, solar powered. And so we found ourselves off in the middle of, I call it everywhere. Some people call it the middle of nowhere, but we were in the middle of everywhere. And we were doing some pretty intense work at that time. Do you remember that? Could you want to talk a little bit about, because you hadn't really, if I'm remembering correctly, you hadn't really put it together around the drowning experience you had at 3, with, something clicked in during this meditation where you went back and remembered what actually happened at the bottom of that pool.
Yeah, we were doing deep immersion work, and we were so blessed to have the resource to be able to grieve the loss of our son, or the ascension of our son, in the way that we did. And I just wish everybody had that experience, really. I think it was so intimate, so expansive, so bonding for not only you and me, but also just us with connecting to Adam. And all that has come from that. And so one of the journeys that we were going down was really doing this work with Kessler and so many other people that were kind of leading us, if you will, online and so forth. But we were basically meditating and journaling on the idea that life is for you, and the questions that come from that, right? So life is for you, and also, what is in this that is for me? What is this that is for me? And so we were doing this really deep immersion work and spending like days without even talking, and having hours and hours and hours where we were just literally just meditating, and then we would share and so forth. In one of the journeys, I had this re-awareness that that I actually had an NDE, that I was actually drowning, and that I was reliving the experience very vividly, and that I was down at the bottom of the pool, and that there was this opening that occurred. It was like a wall of water, a water wall, where there was the other side was literally the other side. And I remember there was a lady whom I later identified was Mother Mary, literally is my angel, but or one of my mentors or guides. I call her my prayer partner. But really, ultimately, she literally stopped me and said to me, "Michael, stop, turn around. It's not your time." And then I remember being whisked out of the water, and the water kind of flowing down my face, and my parents and everybody gathered around, and the kids looking at me, Colleen and other people very concerned, and they whisked me off into the hospital. And I actually lived that from an outer body experience, and I recall that now to the degree it's almost like it was yesterday. I still feel the water rolling down my face. But that really just began a journey into giving myself permission to really open up beyond, right? And then I had experiences with that have just been affirming of
So yeah, so I'm so excited because I love hearing you talk about this, and I was right there with you. So I just, it brings up so many fond feelings and memories about that special spiritual deep dive that we did. And so when you had this like realization that you had an angel or Mother Mary there to guide you, could you then see how like looking back in time, how she had been there influencing things, maybe helping with some of your hospice stuff? Because that's where I want to go next,
yeah.
is for you to share, which it's so amazing. Let's talk about your first hospice experience with a patient, and obviously you won't be using the names, but you'll be making up a name. So share some of your hospice experiences with what opened up with all of that.
Well, I think it was a divine appointment to hear the call, actually, that it was my time to serve in that capacity. I knew that I had the ability to sit, I'll use the term, in the fire with somebody, obviously through training as a practitioner and so forth. Ultimately the practitioner heart opens up, and now we have the ability to sit in the mire with people, wherever that may be. But what an opportunity to walk into somebody that has never met you before, and to now be doing an intake with them, and they've just been told that they're getting ready to make their transition, that there isn't any Western medical stuff that's going to be employed anymore other than comfort measures, and that we are here to support you on that journey. But yeah, like to be thrust in there and to open up the heart and to actually just have an open dialogue with people, the gift and the ability, to tune in, that, I believe we all have it, for those of you that are watching. I mean, it's not really just this unique gift that per se that I have. But really to tune into and surrender into the all-providing activity of divine mind, or to our prayer partners, to those that have a similar trajectory in the collective consciousness, the sum total of the whole, be it all of our ancestors, right? That like my mom and my dad and her parents and their parents and their parents and their parents, they all lived so that we can live. That they are really all part of our collective field, that is part of, not taking from, but part of their experience, to be part of this Michael Benjamin being human incarnation experience, that they're actually lined up being a part of our team, and that they are not only rooting me on, but that they are actually praying in consciousness in the collective, and that entire experience is furthering their experience.
So that brings me to will you talk about, because it was really that what you're talking about really came front of mind to me when you had the experience with Agatha, change the name. So because she was tuning in to her loved one on the other side, right?
Yeah.
Will you set us up, tell us about her, how you met her?
Interesting enough, how obviously being one of the quadrants in spiritual care is one of the quadrants in hospice. So you get a handoff from the intake nurse. Okay, we have a new patient. This patient's hallucinating. You're probably, there may or may not be anything there, stage 5 Alzheimer's, type of thing. And I'm like, okay, fine. So I do the intake. I meet with the daughter, and I'm overwhelmed by the amount of Native American, artifacts in this multi-million-dollar home on the water, right on the lake. And I'm like, wow, just taken back by this experience. But ultimately, I began to have this with childlike curiosity, the inquiry into what's going on here in this beloved's experience. And I began to tune in to the divine infinite. And I came into this awareness that this person is not hallucinating, that there's something very spiritual that's occurring here. And after a long time, after several sessions with the family, and finally getting the blessing to sit with mom, because mom had this long-standing Native American philosophy practice, in flute music and all kinds of things. And they were the last thing they wanted me to do was to evangelize. And so once I got vetted, then they asked me to come sit with mom in meditation and prayer and flute music and chanting anytime I wanted. So I was coming multiple times a week and having this great experience. Well, the awareness set in that she is communicating. And what happened was, backstory, they were orphaned. She's 96-year-old patient. She's orphaned at 5, and her and her brother were. And they were separated by like 75 years, I believe. They reunited again in their 80s. And in a short period of time, he died, massive heart attack. And ever since that time, she has been communicating with him. And of course, was later diagnosed with Alzheimer's, dementia, Alzheimer's, now several years of that. But she's forever just looking up and communicating. And I had this awareness that she isn't hallucinating, she's communicating. And so my experience with her was, to say that it was expensive, is an understatement. I cannot express.
Now, so let me just ask, so was she communicating with you, like verbally? Was she able to talk to you?
No, she was aware that I was there. I would say, I would introduce that I'm here and that I'm just going to be praying with her and meditating today and so forth. And she would say, that's nice, but she never looked at me. She never really made eye contact and spoke directly to me, but she was continuously connected in dialogue.
So was she actually, like, you could hear her voice audibly?
Oh yeah, but not mostly it was mumble. It was a communication dialogue that was taking place at a different dimension, but it wasn't crisp and clear. Every now and again there would be some words that were clear, but for the most part it was just a mumble. But then, ultimately, like I had this what is in this that is for me, and what is this that is for me, sort of heart set and meditation as I'm sitting with her. And it came to me to ask her if she could, if her loved one was here. And I'll use the name John, right? It wasn't John, but if John was here. And so I asked her, is John here? And she, for the first time ever, like, had this really human sense of clarity. And she looked right at me with clear as a bell and said, absolutely, John is here. Oh yeah. And I said, can John connect with my son? And, within like a minute or two, what happened was, her voice changed, and she looked right at me with a different, very masculine sort of presence. And it said to me, Adam, 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 3 times, very clear, is in the light with me. And we went on to have communications. We went on to well, first of all, me, like, in this holy crap moment of, oh my God, what's going on? Chills, my hair sticking up on the backs, like, what's going on, type of thing. But I had this awareness that this was for me. And we went on to have dozens of sessions where we were we were communicating, I was getting answers. But I remember for the first several sessions, I like had to know beyond doubt. And I'm okay, I'm talking to Adam, my son, before I get to her place. I'm like, okay, so I'm going to Adam, I'm here, I'm getting ready to go in, and I want to know beyond doubt. I want to know, beyond all doubt that it's you. And within, it's interesting because, the awareness became the prayer and the answer is one. And ultimately, I don't have all day to talk. I see our time is limited, but ultimately, folks, the prayer and the answer is one. And so the gift that we all have is when we identify with our loved ones, like I have with so many of my patients that have transitioned, dozens of patients over the years that have transitioned in my arms, my hands, where we have an ongoing connection, that they literally have ascended and become part of my prayer partner, prayer team.
Yeah. So you left us hanging. So did Adam give you a for sure sign that he?
Definitive.
And by the way, we'll have you back and talk more about this because Agatha wasn't the only one, right? No. There were lots, and so we'll have you back on and talk more about this. But before we go to your spiritual practice, tell us how Adam let you know that it was really him in real time.
Yeah. So in real time, he. Within minutes of that time, I said, Adam, I'm here. I'm going to go in. I want to know, and I want to know beyond doubt, son. I want to know beyond doubt. And I sat down and started to get into my meditation, my prayer. Immediately, she started to say, who is that? And she's talking to her brother. And she said, well, he's very young and very, very handsome. And then all of a sudden, she reached to me and she started tapping me. She said, yes, he's here. He just got here. He's here. And then all of a sudden she looked at me and said, my granddaughter's name, Adam's daughter's name, right? Lily Jade May 5 is what was said. Just those 4 words. Lily Jade May 5. And I was immediately just in the awareness of that is definitely my son. That is beyond doubt. That is my son. Well, the funny part was I asked you, I texted you, when's Lily's birthday? And you said May 9. And I said, no, it was 5. And you and I were perplexed about that, like with the question mark. And we later told Alex, and Alex kind of gave us a love tap and said, you guys, she turns 5 in May. And so it was really Adam's personality to say, Lily Jade May, she's going to be 5. Right.
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, yeah. So I'm excited to have you back, and we'll talk more about it because it's just so interesting and intriguing. And if you're enjoying this, if you're watching, we'd love to hear about your experiences too with talking to your loved ones on the other side. So I love our guests to share a spiritual practice. So would you share a little bit about, how is it that you get now? How do you sort of get into that mindset of wanting to connect with people on the other side? Because you've actually developed your own way of communicating, not through your hospice client anymore, but direct. So how did we get there? How do we do that?
Well, first of all, we all 100% have the ability to do it, right? So there's a spiritual teaching. The premise is for those that have the ears to hear or the eyes to see. And so the question really that I have for you or the listeners would be, are you available? Are you ready? And if the answer is yes, then the answer really is the prayer and the answer are one. And so let's just have a journey. And so if you would, just join me in closing your eyes. And we just speak right here to myself. This is how I do it, right? So there's no right way. There's no wrong way. But basically what I say is, I give myself permission to be right here, right now. That there's absolutely nowhere else to be at this moment. There's nothing else to be doing. And then I'm tuning in to that innermost on high. I'm going to open up to that expansive nature. And what I find is necessary is to move from that ego mind, from that mind level. And I take that 14-inch journey where I drop down, right? So I get into this elevator in my mind's eye. And I see the elevator doors close, and I begin to descend, and I move downward, breathing and settling in and grounding in. I move down into the heart, the area of the heart. And so I'm in the elevator, and I'm dropping down, moving down, 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 and I'm arriving right here into this very moment, into the heart level. And I see and feel those elevator doors opening up. And those elevator doors open, and I'm now stepping out into the region of the heart. That heart level knows the heartbeat of life, the infinite and all divine presence. And so here I am tuning in to my loved ones. Here I am tuning into, and I name them: Adam, Michael, Carolyn, Bud, Patrick, Mother Mary, Dad, Diantha, Paul, Lorraine, Sally, Sid, Sheena, Mary, Grace, Jean, Carl. I know that you're all here, and Mary, and Barbara, and Barbara, and Barbara. I know you're here, and I'm in gratitude for your presence, for your life. I know that you're in my heart right now. I feel your love. I feel your presence, and I know you feel my love and my gratitude for you living and participating in the collective consciousness with me in this space, in this place, in the here and now. Thank you for being here. I love you all. Thank you. And so I come back into this physical third dimension where I feel my body sitting in this chair, sitting in this space, and I open up my eyes and I take a breath. And when you're ready, just open up your eyes and be here now. And I know that's
so
quick.
Now that's a practice you do, and then you probably spend more time listening and receiving at that point. Well, we're going to have to come back and continue this. That was amazing. And I look forward to sharing you more with our audience in the future. So thank you, everyone, for watching.
Thank you. And thank you to the New Thought Media Network and Allie and the Sati Center. Thanks for New Thought Media Network being here. Thanks for having me. And I'll just stand back and send you off with love, and I'll wait for the next invitation.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael. And thank you, Robert, New Thought Media Network. And next week, we're going to have an amazing guest, Renee Southworth. So stay tuned, and lots of love to you, and peace and blessings. And again, thank you, Michael. Bye.
Namaste, everybody.